Good morning. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Pagani design PD-1662. The PD-1662 is available from PaganiDesignWatch.com for $95 US. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items that one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in this matte black cardboard watch box which has Pagani design and the brand emblem in gold on the lid. Now, bearing in mind that this is a low tier price point piece at only $95 US, I think it's perfectly acceptable for Pagani design to use this style of cardboard watch box. One feature I really like about it is the use of two magnets which attract each other. There's one magnet in the flap lid and there's also one magnet in the base, and they do a good job of attracting each other, so there's a nice positive click to the lid flap, as you can see. It's a feature I haven't seen other watch brands use, and I think it's innovative, and Pagani design deserve due credit for it. The interior of the lid is also branded in silver with Pagani design in the emblem. There's a fabric finish to the cardboard. The watch itself sits on a piece of foam which you remove, as you can see, and inside there's a foam cutout panel which protects the watch fully in transit from any damage. So although basic, it does suffice in protecting the watch, and I think it's done to a high standard, bearing in mind it's just a cardboard watch box, so I like it. With regards to the other items one gets with the watch, one also gets this Pagani design branded microfiber polishing cloth, and I always think it's a nice touch to get a microfiber polishing cloth with a watch. One also gets this plastic guarantee card. On the reverse there's a space to fill in the dates, the reference number of the piece which is PD-1662, and also a dealer could stamp the warranty card. So I'm pleased to report that the PD-1662 comes with a 12-month international guarantee, which is very reassuring. One also gets this Pagani design branded plastic tag which has the Pagani design logo and emblem embossed on both sides, as you can see, and I think it's clear that Pagani design are making every effort to satisfy the collector, even though this is a low tier price point piece, because they're including these kinds of accessories. Lastly, one also gets this owner's instruction manual. It's in English and it is basic, but it does have diagrams which suffice in explaining the operation of the automatic movement, including the GMT functions and the date complication and time setting complications. So it's a useful read if you're unfamiliar with GMT movements, such as the automatic movement used in the watch. And I think it's good that they have included an owner's instruction manual. So with regards to the watch itself, the Pagani design PD-1662 is clearly an homage to the Rolex Batman GMT Master 2. And I think it does a good job of being an homage to the Batman because it has the same 40mm case. So with regards to the specification, it's a 40mm case made from solid 316L grade stainless steel. The lug-to-lug measurement is 47mm. It has a thickness of 14mm and it has a lug width of 20mm. The Jubilee bracelet has solid end links and it tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the flip lock. So the flip lock clasp is nicely executed, mirror polished flanks, and it has a brushed satin finish to the outer sections. The centre section is mirror polished and it has Pagani design beautifully laser engraved to a high standard. So credit where credit's due. The quality of finishing in terms of the brushed satin finish and also the mirror polishing to the case and the bracelet are done to a high standard. And I think that over the time that Pagani design has been producing watches, it has gradually improved with regards to the quality control and the case finishing. The mirror polishing to the flanks of the case is done to a flawless finish. It really is very well done. And I really like it. I think that they've done a very good job of finishing the case throughout. Brushed satin finish to the tops of the lugs, brushed satin finish to the underside of the case. The underside of the case has a solid stainless steel screw down case back which provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters. The centre section of that stainless steel screw down case back is glazed with mineral crystal. So sapphire crystal on the front of the watch, mineral crystal in the exhibition case back. The sapphire crystal has a Cyclops magnifier over the date complication. Now, one minor criticism is that the Cyclops magnifier only magnifies the date window by 1.5 times magnification. On a Rolex, the Cyclops magnifier magnifies the date complication by 2.5 times magnification, so it's superior in terms of performance. But however, one has to bear in mind that this is a low tier price point piece at $95 US. And I think that although it's only 1.5 times magnification, it does suffice in magnifying the date complication and making it easier to read the date wheel. So with regards to the rest of the specification, it has a ceramic bezel, as you can see, and it does a very good job of replicating the Batman ceramic bezel. Now, one thing I want to bring to your attention is there have been some notable improvements to the build quality of the watch and the quality control. Earlier versions of the Pagani PD-1662 had a defect where the blue section of the ceramic bezel, it finished underneath the 6 Arabic numeral on the bezel insert. But what they've done now is they've replicated the Rolex ceramic bezel insert, because you can see the blue and the black split straight down the middle of the 6, and they also split straight down the middle of the 1800 hours in Arabic numerals. So it's just like the Rolex Batman blue and black ceramic bezel. Rather than the blue finishing underneath the number 6 Arabic numeral, it finishes halfway across. Now, another thing they've improved upon was the early versions of this PD-1662 used to say Japan movement at the 6 o'clock index on the dial, and that was because they used the same dial in their Submariner Homage watches. They both are branded with Explorer, but the Submariner Homage versions use the Seiko NH35A, which is a Japanese made movement, so it would make sense to have Japan movement at 6 o'clock on the dial for the Submariner Homage versions. But Pagani Design made the mistake of using the same dial in the Batman homages, and of course it doesn't make sense to put Japan movement on the dial because the movement is Chinese made, not Japanese. It uses the Pearl DG5833 GMT movement, and that is made in Guangzhou in China rather than being Japanese made like the Seiko NH35A. So they've rectified that. They've removed the Japan movement from underneath the 6 o'clock index on the dial. With regards to the dial execution, the applied indices are well finished. They're fully loomed, and I think the dial is over branded with text. It says Pagani Design and then it says Explorer. I think it would look better if it didn't have Explorer on the dial, but the rest of the specification on the dial is acceptable. Saying automatic, water resistant, 100 meters is all perfectly acceptable, and it also says GMT in blue. So really, they could just improve it by removing Explorer, because it's clear that this isn't an homage to a Rolex Explorer, it's an homage to a Rolex Batman GMT Master. So overall, I think it's well executed. So I'll just show you the interior of the flip-lock clasp. Now, this is something else they've improved upon. They really do gradually improve the specification. Solid stainless steel milled section to the interior, which is just like a Rolex glide lock clasp. It does do a good job of replicating it. Now, there's no glide lock extension, as you can see. The interior of the clasp simply has 3 micro adjustments, but what it does have is a copy of the Rolex Easy Link extension, which adds 5mm of extension to the length of the bracelet, and it does snap in and out of the inside of the flip lock. Well, it does work. So I like it. I think that the clasp is finished to a good standard, mirror polished to the flanks and the top side, satin finish to the centre section, and the underside is also mirror polished to a high standard. So they've done a good job, and they've gradually improved the quality. The earlier versions of it had sloppy fits, but they've gradually improved and tightened it up. So I think that they are making efforts to improve their quality control. This one is certainly better than the earlier versions I've seen. I also like the use of screw pins in the links rather than push pins. I think that that's good that they haven't used any cost-cutting measures. So with regards to the movement used in the watch, nice that they've got a screw-down exhibition case back, so one can view the Pearl DG5833 GMT movement through the case back. It's undecorated, but it does have blued screws, and it has a large blued screw to the cannon pinion to secure the rotor to the cannon pinion. So nicely decorated rotor with the Pagani Design brand logo, as you can see. Now, with regards to the movement, it has hand winding and hacking, 40-hour power reserve, and I'm pleased to report that this one is running at plus 10 seconds per day, which is perfectly acceptable, bearing in mind the price point of the watch. Nice positive click to the flip-lock clasp, and nice positive secondary click to the flip-lock itself. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box, and I'm pleased to report that it does in fact fit my 8-inch wrist with no difficulty whatsoever. I can size the bracelet correctly because there is an index finger of expansion gap underneath the bracelet, as one would expect. So the 40mm case with that 47mm lug-to-lug measurement does sit very well on the wrist. Good snug fit, and it feels very comfortable. The feel-good factor of the watch is excellent. One really does get the feeling of wearing a Rolex Batman GMT Master 2. I really like the execution of the ceramic bezel. I think credit where credit's due, Pagani Design have done a good job. The quality of the ceramic is very nice. And I also like the finishing of the large engraved Arabic numerals. It really is done to a very high standard, and I would say that the quality of the ceramic bezel is the kind of ceramic bezel one would expect on a mid-tier piece rather than a low-tier piece that only costs $95. Mercedes hands, just like the Rolex GMT Master 2, and it's clearly legible. I think they've done a good job of the bezel. Nicely finished, and overall it's just a very aesthetically pleasing piece. Very comfortable to wear on the wrist due to the flat sapphire crystal in the flat mineral crystal, in the exhibition case back. So let's do a lume test, and we'll see how the lume on the dial and hands performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. Now, this is a $95 watch, so I haven't got high expectations of the lume performance. One isn't going to get Swiss BGW9 Superluminova on a $95 watch made in China. But however, we'll charge it up to the absolute maximum using my 100 UV LED torch, and we'll see how it performs. So as you can see, initially the blue lume, which is very aesthetically pleasing, does glow brightly on both the Mercedes hands and also the applied indices. And I'm actually pleasantly surprised. Yes, it's not as bright and it's not glowing for the length of time that BGW9 Superluminova would do, or Rolex Chromelight, but I think it is good. I think the quality of the lume is perfectly acceptable, bearing in mind the price point of the piece. So I'm pleasantly surprised, and I think that this is something that Pagani Design deserve due credit for. They haven't cut corners with regards to the lume. Yes, it's Luminova rather than being BGW9 Superluminova, but however, it is performing. It's glowing brightly enough, and it's also glowing for a good enough length of time. So I think it's acceptable. So lastly, I'll surmise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the respective price point of this watch is $95. It's a low tier piece. And I have to say that yes, I do consider it to be both excellent quality, and yes, I do consider it to be excellent value at the respective price point. So what are the negatives? Well, I have to give a minor criticism to the fact that the Cyclops magnifier is 1.5 times magnification, as I've discussed, and the only other real negative to the watch is the execution of the bezel. The ceramic bezel inset is done to a high standard, as I've discussed, so no criticism with regards to the build quality, the quality control, or the finishing of the bezel insert. The stainless steel bezel itself is finished to a high standard. It does look very aesthetically pleasing. But the only criticism really I have is the execution in terms of the action of the bezel. It's a 60-click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. On a Rolex it's bidirectional, but one isn't going to get bidirectional bezels on a low-tier piece like this. But the bezel itself, in terms of its execution, feels rough. It's not a smooth click between each of those 60 clicks. But however, one is going to expect these kind of issues with a watch at this price point. So it's a rough feeling bezel, but it does actually do the job. Now the other thing is there is some backlash in the bezel. Slight backlash, one can rotate the bezel clockwise and anti-clockwise, and again that's something one has to live with at this price point. It's a $95 watch, so one can't be overly critical about things like backlash in the bezel and also the fact that the clicks are a bit rough feeling. The alignment is good. The triangle on the ceramic bezel inset does align perfectly with the 12 o'clock index triangle on the dial. So no problem with regards to the alignment. So just to bear in mind it's rough feeling and also some slight backlash, but I think it is acceptable, as is the 1.5 times magnification. They really are the only two main negatives of the watch. The screw-down crown does provide an effective hermetic seal. It's signed with a Pagani Design brand emblem, and the coin edge finishing is done to a high standard. It's smooth to operate and it does suffice. It does work, and it's easy to set the date complication, set the time, and also set the GMT hour hand. So overall, I'm going to say that yes, this is a good watch. I recommend it for your consideration. I think it is good value and also good quality at $95. So I hope you've liked my review of the Pagani Design PD-1662. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.